I am Sean Webb, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Rock Goddess, and I am rolling with Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Dave Meltzer, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Zach Poitras, and this is Your Superior Self.
Hi, this is Paul Selig, and this is Your Superior Self.
What's up, everybody? I'm Aubrey Marcus, and this is Your Superior Self.
What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back. I'm Trey Downs, and this is Your Superior Self. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. It fires me up that you download this episode. I love hanging out with you guys. This is your first time hanging out. Welcome. This podcast, trust me, it is on a whole nother level. I started this thing out looking for growth and business and success and marketing and everything that, coaching, masterminds, all of that entrepreneur type of success. And it's basically morphed into this personal quest for myself of finding that higher consciousness, that my superior self, and helping you find your superior self, that higher being that's inside of you, that power that is just so raw, and the light that is just so powerful that we are just asleep to. And this is all happened in the last 2 years, and everything that I went out on that path to success looking for different ways to make money, revenue, and be successful in that world. And that didn't work out for me. It just really showed me that I was going out looking for the external things in life that are just so shallow, that are just so meaningless. And the world, the journey, the universe kept pointing me in this direction of spirituality, it just kept pointing me in the direction that I was curious, pointing me towards near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, higher consciousness, channeling, psychics, you name it. I read a lot of their material, and it just resonates with me so much, just their message and the stories that they have to tell. It just, on a higher level, connects with me. And I find that I am able to be the best version of myself when I align to their messages, when I align to their stories, when I align to their frequency and vibration. If you want to kind of get a better idea about the types of vibrations and types of frequencies that I'm talking about, listen to the last episode with Paul Selig, and we have a pretty good conversation about his books, how he's raising his vibrations, how he's helping others raise their vibrations and frequency, and becoming more aware about the teachings that he channels. It's pretty good stuff. And all I ask is that you keep an open mind, because today we talk about, like I said, Dr. Joe Mancini Jr. and I talk about past life regressions. He is on the forefront of that, and he's one of the more well-known hypnotherapists in this field. And his book that I read that turned me on to a lot of the past life regressions and hypnosis and hypnotherapy was the book titled The Present Power of Past Lives. And it's a pretty fantastic book. It basically is a transcription of his old radio show of all the past guests and guest speakers that he had on the show, and they talk. It's great material. It pointed me in a direction of the Seth books, which then pointed me in another direction, and it pointed me in another direction, and I just kept an open mind to the entire process. And I was able to, I'm still working on myself. I don't think you ever fully reach a level of complete, I don't know, I don't want to say, you never get to that finish line in this game. There is no finish line in this game of spirituality and higher self. There's always just the next progression. There's always the next bar that you have to raise yourself to. And that's what I love about it. Today I'm 100%, I can honestly say that I am 100% in a better position, a better space, a better place, just in my heart, from where I was 6 months ago. or even a year. I mean, I'm not the same person at all. We're not the same person biologically, and I'm definitely not the same person spiritually. I can tell you that much. Not in like a woohoo, like, you know, one of those I don't know, those guys that you see on TV that are just kind of like, you know, they got the memes about COVID, and not like that. I'm talking about like more of a spiritual place that is just, you don't even have to explain it. Like you just feel good where you're at, and I don't care about what any other person feels about where they think I should be. And that's been a big game changer for myself, is just kind of turning down that external noise and just doing the things that I want to do because I want to do them, and then getting, I mean, I just can't explain to you the growth that I've gone through, not only for me, but for my family as well. And I'm very happy that you're listening to this, and I hope that you continue to follow me along my path, and that I can help you along with yours. And all I ask is that you keep an open mind and don't ever take what I'm saying I try to always tell people, fact check. Like, don't just take my word for it. Like, go back and do the research for yourself. If you don't feel comfortable with something that I either say or a guest says, like, I support you in your growth regardless of what we say in this interview, but you're going to have to do that by doing the work as well, like doing the research and reading the books that I'm reading, and getting your own opinion, because everyone has their own interpretation of the content or interpretation of the literature. And that's the best part about life, is having that own perception, having your own idea of what the message that you need to get out of it. Yeah. But let me do this. Here's a little clip of what Dr. Joe brings to the table.
We create our reality. Every single bit of what happens, we create it. Okay? Individually and together. Now, this is a hard pill to swallow, because, and I talk about this in the first book a lot, especially when these terrible things happen. The question is, why the hell would I create that? And the answer always is that we want to understand how our actions flow directly from our beliefs and our emotions.
Oh, man. And that might be hard for some people to listen to, because, like, at the most basic level, if you want to think about this, like, everything that you've done today up to this point, and you're listening to this episode, every decision that you've made up to this point, you've created your own reality. You've created this position. You've created this moment with me, which I thank you for sharing. But you've done that. And that's true for your entire life. Every decision. You might not want to face that. You might want to think, well, my circumstances are different than yours. But down to the most basic human level, you've made every decision on your own, and your life is a reflection of that, whether it's good or bad. And if it's bad, make it the conscious decision to change it. If it's good, pat yourself on the back, because that's a good thing, right? But I also believe that we can definitely change our lives and bring forward things in our lives that we can manifest. And I'm in the middle of that. So I don't want to go out and say that that's a known for me. I believe that. It's not a known right now. I am working on that. And I'm seeing spurts of evidence. I don't have enough data to say that, my hypothesis is supported, but it's looking good. I'll leave it at that. But getting back to today's episode, this is the stuff that fires me up. I'm just telling you right now. And if you can't have an open mind to it, then I'm going to say stop right now, because this is not the podcast for you. Like, this is going to be probably shaking you to the core of your beliefs, which is not a bad thing. It might be a good thing. But like I said, keep an open mind. I love this stuff. This stuff fires me up. And I hope that you can, just keep an open mind and listen to it. I want to know your thoughts, though. email me. Go to yoursuperiorself.com. Let me know what you're thinking, good or bad, regardless. I love having conversations with the audience and learning about where you are in your journey. Follow me on Instagram, tdowns80, and I have a Facebook group on Facebook, obviously, Your Superior Self, and follow me over there. You kind of see more behind the scenes actions, some running posts, and some pictures behind the scenes, family, stuff like that, and whatever most important to me in my life, and then books and quotes and good things like that. Nothing salesy, no masterminds, no coaching links, whatever you want to call them, click-throughs, whatever, clickbait. This is straight up for your benefit. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Dr. Joseph Mancini Jr.
Hi, I'm Joe Mancini, and this is Your Superior Self.
Dr. Mancini, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
And I really appreciate being asked to join.
So I finished your book, The Present Power of Past Lives, The Experts Speak. And it's very different. You used to have a radio show, and this is basically transcripts of that show. And it's very, it's not common stuff. It's not common topics that you usually talk about. We're talking about past life regressions, lives in between lives. So what I've been wanting to ask you is, how does a English major, I think you got a PhD in English, how do you go from that to past life regressions?
Well, I didn't go from being an English teacher to past life regressions. There was something in between, mm-hmm. And that was that I was a clinical social worker for about 20 years. And what literature and social work therapy have in common is their analyses of people and events, situations. So I became a very good analyzer while I was teaching literature, and that just very easily transferred to work with clients. And then the traditional therapy wasn't enough for me. I wasn't interested as much after 20 years. So I started seeing what else was available to help clients, and not just on a psychological level, but also a spiritual level. And I found a past life regressionist and went to see him and was absolutely blown away with the experience I had that involved my twin sister, who was passed over some years ago. But I found out things about her that connected to this present incarnation. And I was sold. After that, I got to do this.
Well, how do you get certified in past life regressions, and how do you how do you become the expert? How do you start your own practice?
Well, answer the first question very simply. You have to go to school, and I don't recommend that people go and take simply a past life regression course. They need to start at the beginning and learn about hypnosis, and learn a lot about it and about how to work with people. And the past life regression courses should be the add-ons after the basic hypnosis information has been acquired and assimilated. So it's really, really important to have a good enough background. I'm fortunate because I had been a therapist for 15 years, a regular therapist. So I knew how to work with people anyway. And hypnosis and past life regression was just something new to add to my techniques. And one of the things I always tell my clients is that hypnosis, on the one hand, is far less exotic than most people think, and far more exotic than they think. It's not exotic and the woo-woo stuff. For instance, the common image of a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist is of a person with some kind of medallion or something and waving it in front of the eyes of the client, and that it's fraught with all kinds of myths, etc. All it is a technique to get the client to close his or her eyes, because if the client is following this watch or whatever, medallion, whatever, back and forth, you want to stop it as the client, and so you just close your eyes. That's all it is. And yet the things that happen often during a hypnotic trance, a session, are utterly amazing. They're just utterly amazing.
Well, for my listeners that are listening right now, like I am, I'm getting more and more into my spirituality, I guess, so I'm still experiencing some of these some of the new literature. Well, it's new literature to me. It's not new whatsoever. Most of this has been written in 1970, like, the Seth books with Jane Roberts, which you mentioned. But I found her through you. I've been reading a lot of Dr. Weiss, I think his name is Brian L. Weiss. And some, what is it? The guy, Robert Monroe. I've been reading a lot of his stuff as well. And so can you just explain like the basics of what a past life regression is? Like, what is the purpose and what is it?
Okay. Well, let me say something about the purpose, and then I'll run you through my protocol of it.
Sure.
Okay. So, it's hard to know where to start because there's so many different aspects to this. So, past life regressions, let me begin this way, are really not past. And future progressions, which is the complement, are not future. All lives are simultaneous in the other world. When remembrance of these lives is brought into the time-space world, there's the psyche organizes some of them to be in the past and some in the future. Okay, and there's also this, along with past lives, is the common notion of karma. And being a student of Seth, I take great issue with this notion. Karma is a time-space construct. Karma, as usually understood, is dependent on cause and effect. You do something and there's an effect at some later time. And therefore, cause and effect is dependent on time. But if there's no time, then, and karma is dependent on that, then in effect, there is no karma. And I want to stress this because this is very important. Very few people talk about it this way. When people talk about karma in the conventional way, there's a sense almost of predeterminism involved with this, that you can't escape something you did in the past. And it's sort of like never ending. Whereas a different view is that we have contracts that, in effect, all lives, as I said earlier, are present. So our past lives are even now present. And what we do is whatever's happening in this life right now that we've chosen and created. And I want to really emphasize choice is really paramount here. Okay. So I might take information from a so-called past life and assess it in this life. I may redo it. I may redo whatever the situation was, but I'm choosing to do that. I'm not predetermined to do that. There's nothing in a past life or even a future life that makes me do something in this lifetime. So one of the uses of going to a so-called past life is that we find out other versions of what we're doing now, and we have choices about what to do, what to change, what not to change, what to extend, what to hold back on. So it's more information about that helps us in this present lifetime, if we so choose. And what's really important, again, is choice. I say that all the time. We are not robots, not spiritual robots. We are not predetermined to do anything. So we are responsible for anything we do in this lifetime, in this incarnation, who we are now. We have affinities to who we were and who we will be in terms of time. But those characters that we were and will be do not have a definitive impact on what we're doing now. We can choose to have them have a definitive impact, but again, it's all choice. Now, the way I'm talking about karma, you won't hear this in many schemas. They stay with what I call the time-space version of contracts. I don't know if we have time. I can give you an example of the two with a friend of mine. In fact, I think I talk about it in the book that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. We have time to tell.
Yeah,
I'll
go
do
ahead.
it real quick. Okay.
No, you're good. Take your time.
So my friend, a friend of mine whom I interviewed, in that book that you read, that's my first book, told a story about being a foster parent for many years with her husband. And everything would pretty much go very well because they're very loving, caring people. But one day, they took into the house a teenager, a boy. And he was a bit of a problem. Belligerent, not wanting to be to do the right things as established by his foster parents. So, and I'm using her real name because it's in the book. Linda, who had been a hypnotherapist, thought, I wonder if there is some past life relationship between me, Linda, and this young man. So she went to a hypnotherapist, and sure enough, back centuries ago, she was a mother of, I think it was 3 or 4 children. And I don't know if they were all by the same father, but there was no male parent around. And she was very destitute, and things were really, really, really bad. So bad that she realized that 4 children was one too many to be able to take care of all of them, to feed them and all of that. And she was desperate because she knew if she went on the way she was they were all going to die. So she had a young boy who was about 14 or so. And in those days, that was virtually an adult. So what she did in that lifetime was sell the boy, knowing that it wouldn't be long before he would probably get his freedom, but he would work for a while for the person to whom she sold him. And not so much as a slave, but someone who would be helpful. Well, she did that. That boy survived, and so did all of her children and herself. However, as she came near the end of her life, she was very, very upset that she had done this, even though she really had no choice if they were going to remain alive. She was so upset. So she decided, she made a vow, and vows are very dangerous at the end of a life because they're often made with an ungrounded consciousness. She made the vow that if she would ever meet him ever again, somehow, some way, she would never let him go. Fast forward to this lifetime. So she realized that here was this boy who had come back as a foster child. And in the old notion of karma, she would be being punished in this life for selling the boy.
Mm-hmm.
And he would come as a foster child and torment her. That's the old definition of karma. However, when she settled in with that, the boy became even more raucous and even started to hit her and her husband, and was getting to be really, really, really a problem. So much so that the other foster children and they themselves were in great danger. So, and he was 15, 16 years old. She made the very difficult decision of once again sending him away back to the orphanage. And what she came to an awareness of was that she had a contract with this young man for him to come back, and for her to realize that back then and even now, she had made the right decision to send him away. That all this happened all over again in a slightly different context, not because she had done wrong and was being punished, but because she had to realize that she had to do the best she could and not feel guilty about it in both lives. And that's the difference between a karmic way of looking at the influence of a past life and a contract way of looking. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that is clear. I like your way better. I kind of like that way better. It's like it's kind of like a training, like a simulation kind of thing where you keep getting tested and tested and tested until you pass it, right? I guess. And you grow.
And you recognize that you need to do this. It's not pushed on you. It's not inevitable. It's just that when you're at a higher vibration in the between incarnations, you realize you've got to do something different, or you've got to have a different point of view. And it's about choice. I choose to have this happen to me.
Yeah. Are you finding that a lot more people are more open to the past life regressions now than they used to be?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd say probably in the last 20 years.
Do you think it's like this awakening that people talk about that we're having?
Yeah, I do think so. I think that's part of it.
Like a higher, we're becoming more conscious.
Much more conscious. That the self, the soul, is extremely multidimensional. You know, when I grew up, I was a Catholic, and I grew up with the notion that you have one chance, and if you mess up, especially if you commit a mortal sin, you go straight to hell. And as a kid, I questioned a lot. I didn't openly question too much, but I questioned. That didn't make sense to me. That did not make sense with the notion of a loving God, that you had one chance, and for sure you were going to mess up. It didn't make sense. So reincarnation makes a whole lot more sense to me. And you have many, many, many dimensions. As Seth says, we live in many dimensions at the same time. And we have past life cells, future cells, parallel cells in parallel universes, and counterpart cells. These are all explained by Seth in assessment material. We are so very multidimensional. And the good news about that is that if we know that, and there are ways, and I devise some ways, to reach these different aspects of ourselves, they all hold information that can be useful for the self we are here in this incarnation. That's the primary reason to access these selves, is there's a ton of more information.
So you mean reaching these selves through hypnosis?
Yes.
Okay. How long does it take? Like, I mean, if someone were to come to you, I want to get a past life regression, like how long is that entire process?
Okay. Yeah,
I guess it varies per person.
Yes and no. One of my pet peeves I'm going to mention right now, there will be some hypnotherapists who will advertise that you can have a past life regression in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm totally opposed to that. My sessions usually last, unless they're group sessions, individual sessions usually last no less than 3 hours.
Wow.
And the reason for that is that I spend a good hour interviewing the person about his or her life in this incarnation, because I need to know, first of all, that helps relax the person. It helps that person develop rapport with me. And third, it gives me knowledge about the person's life that I can plug the fruits of the past life into that life. I can make that past life, much more relevant when I know about the person. So to me, it's ethically responsible to take time to do an interview.
Mm-hmm. And
then the past life usually lasts about an hour. For my second book on regressions to the Civil War, I took a little more time, anywhere from an hour to an hour and a half because I wanted to know a lot more details. And then I spend whatever is left of the 3 hours helping the person integrate their information from the past life. It's really, really crucial to me and ethical. I'd really say that some hypnotherapists maybe listen to me and maybe angry at what I'm saying, and I really don't care, because I really believe that the way I do it is the ethical way to do it.
Sure. No, I've never had one, and I'm very interested in having one. Just because, like, all right, so there's two different, I don't know, like, so reading your books and reading Dr. Weiss's stuff, seems like the theory is that we're here to heal from past lives, or we're going from different lives and we need to heal from those. And then reading Robert Monroe's stuff, it's like we're going through these different levels of he talks about spirits coming into this human realm, I guess, and then you drop in the circles and you try to work your way back up, I guess, to a higher consciousness. However, you're just trying to get that experience. Now, are we now in your process and your career, is it because we're trying to heal from each life, or is it because we're trying to reach a higher consciousness?
Both. And I would say that even though those are important, they're not the most important thing. I'm with Seth in this. We're here to learn energy, how to use energy, and how to be responsible for our use of energy. Okay, that's an overarching purpose of our life in three-dimensional space.
So explain that real quick, like the energy. Like, some people are listening to this and like they don't really grasp that. So like, kind of break it down.
The cardinal principle of the Seth material, which I embrace, not because Seth said it, but because it makes total sense to me after a lot of years. We create our reality. Every single bit of what happens, we create it. Okay? individually and together. Now, this is a hard pill to swallow because, and I talk about this in the first book a lot, especially when these terrible things happen. The question is, why the hell would I create that? And the answer always is that we want to understand how our actions flow directly from our beliefs and our emotions. We're learning how to be creators here. Even if we're creating things that don't seem very good, there's always a deeper purpose involved in that, a deeper learning. And healing is part of it, but it's not the end all and be all of it. And reaching a higher consciousness is, again, very much a part of it. But not until we learn that our actions flow from us. From us. What we see out there is a reflection of what's inside us. Mm-hmm. When we really get that on a visceral level, not just an intellectual level or even just an emotional level, but a visceral, it's completely, yes, I believe this. Only after many incarnations to learn that do we get the chance to leave and go to a totally different realm that has different principles governing it. Jane and Rob of the Seth material, this was their, Seth would say to them fairly from time to time, this is your last incarnation. You will have learned what you need to learn about manipulating energy, about creating with energy through your beliefs. So it's all about learning that we are responsible for what we create and what we do. Nobody else, not even past lives or future lives, no other part of us. It's us right here and now. And
I'm so
again,
glad you brought that up because I've been reading the Seth material. I got it on Audible, which is pretty cool because they have 3 different voices. So you can kind of get instead of just reading the book and trying to imagine what they all sound like, they have different actors that read the content. And it's pretty cool, actually. I like it a lot. But he talks about beliefs and being able to, I guess, like you said, create your reality, right? Through your belief.
Yes.
And like, so the way that I take it is like, if I want to alter my reality, like everything up to this point, I have to realize that everything up to this point that I've created for myself, like I have called that into being.
Right.
I have believed it. And in order to change it, I have to change my beliefs. And
that's right.
And not just your actions, but
no.
really believe in what you're doing. So for me, let's just say, hey, look, with the podcast, like I want this podcast to be something very special. I want this to be bigger than what it is now. For me to bring that into reality, not only do I have to bring the actions behind that, but I actually have to believe that, right?
Yes, and let me expand that a little bit. And that's a really good example, okay? So you can say, I really want to expand this whole podcasting thing that I've created, okay? Now, there's a whole like almost protocol, we could call it protocol for reality creation. It's important, first of all, to know what the beliefs are that created your present reality. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's important to know what's already been creating. And partly because if you want to go ahead and you're finding for some reason that you're not advancing, that's the time to ask yourself in a very sober way, are there any beliefs, and I can assure you there would be, are there any beliefs that are cross purposes with the beliefs that want me to go forward? I have a blog site. For some reason,
I'll attach I'll attach it to the show notes. So look in the show notes, and he'll have his blog.
Okay. So there's a blog site as well as a website. The blog site has a lot of articles that I've written from a Sethian point of view. And one of them is called At the Crossroads of Beliefs. And I address this very issue with people, who could come into my office and say, I really, really, really want to find this relationship. And I've tried every single way to do it, And I already know that there are beliefs that cross purposes with the stated beliefs. That a person might be afraid to be successful. That's a very strong anti-belief belief. Mm-hmm. Okay? May be afraid of what could come as a result of that. That the person might have to step up more. Be out in the world more. Or the person might be afraid of being successful because they've carried over a belief from a past life. They've chosen to do it in order to examine it further. Especially if it was something spiritual. So many people come to the office and have had past lives in which they were persecuted for being out of the box. Mm-hmm. And they haven't resolved that, so they bring it into this life, choose to work it again, but it gets in the way. All right? And there have been so many times when people do not recognize the contrary beliefs. If you don't, you can do all kinds of things and you won't progress. Or you'll delay the manifestation. It might not stop it altogether, but it might delay it.
Yeah, because that was a huge. I was actually listening to it today, and he was like, "Beliefs equal reality," Yep. And then he said he's earlier in the book he talks about like the imagination game where you kind of imagine yourself there. You don't have to he just said it today. He was like, you don't have to kill yourself all day with this belief thing, just in imagining this belief and try to change your belief. You just do it. You can do it like once a day, but imagine yourself there, imagine it. And small.
Make it very, very vivid.
Yeah.
In the imagination, you use all of your senses to image it. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's the real meaning of imagination. It's the image making part of us. And so you make it very vivid in sensate terms. You have to give a lot of emotion to it. You have to give, not at every moment, but the emotion must be behind it, behind the belief and the image, pushing it. And the third part, and this sounds weird to some people, as though nothing I've said sounds weird. Not at this point. Right. You have to receive it. What you created, you have to let it happen. And a lot of people forget that third part. Yeah, I got the beliefs going, I've got the emotion going, but for some reason I haven't let it come here. I just haven't.
Out of fear, probably.
Out of fear. Or it's going to take up too much time. That's a belief. I'm not really up for it. That's a belief. My girlfriend, boyfriend, wife, husband won't like this. There are so many contrary beliefs. They have to be made conscious. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's like, trying to drive a car and there's a chain on the back bumper. And that chain are those negative beliefs.
Well, have you done anything in your life to physically, bring your belief into reality?
To bring what belief?
Any belief. Like, have you done that? Have you tried to either change a belief or change your mindset and bring
Yeah,
that?
I mean, early on, I don't want to appear vain about this, but I've got a whole wall in my office.
We all got walls in our office full of stuff. Come on now.
Full of certificates. I have all those letters after my name because I really believed I was going to achieve what I achieved.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say that I've achieved everything I want.
Sure.
And usually it's because there's a belief holding me back.
Yeah.
Okay. And we will do this even if we wouldn't be alive if this didn't happen subconsciously as well as consciously. The reason why you want to do it consciously is you have more awareness, more choice.
Yeah.
In terms of fine-tuning what it is you want.
Yeah, it's that damn left brain, man. Like, it gets me all the time. Like, I start, like, my spirituality. Like, I'm not a total skeptic, but it's like I'm that intellectual skeptic where I'm like, I'm slowly getting in the water, right? You know, the past life regressions, you know, trying to alter my consciousness, like trying to get from beta to alpha to theta in my mind and experiencing these different levels of consciousness to feel that, messing with my energy, trying to align my chakras. And, you know, before, like, I was Catholic too, you know, I'm still am Catholic. And it's like, before any of this awakenness, like, I would have looked at these books and I would have been like, you're crazy. But, you know, after reading, I'll tell you what started it. It was, I think is Dr. Moody from University of Virginia, his near-death experience books.
Yeah.
Like, for some reason, I picked up his book and started reading it, and it was like 100 accounts or different accounts of people having these near-death experiences. And it was like, they all had not the same exact experience, but it was very similar. Like,
right.
You come out of your body and you feel this joy and all this. I'm like, well, that's weird. That's a pattern, right?
But that pattern is what gives the credibility.
Yeah.
And just about anything, it gives it the credibility.
So then I would start reading different books about near-death experiences, and they would be the same. And then you know what's really weird? And you're on the East Coast. You're in Maryland, right?
Yeah.
So we're both in Maryland, which is pretty cool because that rarely happens. A lot of the books that I read, it's so weird that a lot of them it's like these guys are from Virginia or something. Like Edgar Casey lived in Norfolk. Robert Monroe had a farm in Virginia. Moody, he's from University of Virginia. Like, a lot of people come out of Virginia. In Virginia, University of Virginia has like a small section of parapsychology on their website. And it's like, what is up with Virginia? I don't know if you ever noticed that or not, but it's like a lot of great minds are definitely in Virginia.
I don't know. I mean, the East Coast and the West Coast tend to be.
I guess it's the ocean. I don't know. Man.
Well, I don't know. They tend to be more. Maybe it's. I love the ocean, and I think most people here do.
Yeah.
There seems to be an intellectual kind of renaissance on the coast.
Like this powerful guidance. I don't know, but it's like this weird coincidence or pattern that keeps coming up every time I read something. If you pay attention to it, I promise you'll catch it too. Like, you'll start reading these books, and it's like University of Virginia pops up, Virginia. I'm like, somebody's trying to tell me something, man. Like, am I supposed to go to Virginia or something? Like, I'm going back to school right now. I'm getting my business degree. I never graduated, but I'm very lucky to be where I'm at in life. But I'm going back because it's something that I want to achieve. And I want to get my graduate degree in IO psychology. And I've been really thinking about majoring and getting changing to psychology and getting my doctorate in psychology, just because the mind is so fascinating. It's just so different. It's like you can't explain consciousness really, right? Like, I mean, let
me say something about what your plans.
Be gentle, please.
No. I've actually we mentioned 3 of my careers, but I had another one for a decade and a half. These were all overlapping. And it was in business consulting, organizational development, and executive coaching. So I went into the business world and even into the government. And it was the least satisfying career that I've had.
Yeah.
But I always found a way to bring some of the spirituality into that.
Yeah.
In fact, I remember the National Institute, I think it's the National Institute of Cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in Baltimore. I did a workshop for them about beliefs and leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a way to
bridge that.
This bridge. I always was looking for ways to do that. In fact, one of the people that I coached in one of the government offices became someone who would go through a lot of past life regression.
Mm-hmm.
And I just talked to him the other day, and he said, I thought a lot of that stuff was hokey stuff, but I'm glad you pushed me. And now he does a lot of work with near-death experiencers.
Yeah.
He does it. So given you can bring together your two interests, the business world, it's trickier, but you can do it, and the spiritual world. There's transformational leadership is a nexus for all of that. And you can read books about that.
What is it?
Transformational leadership. And there are different takes on that. But that is a really good way to make a bridge between your interests.
I tell you what, I love leadership, but man, have I gotten into spirituality, near-death experiences, past life regressions. What do they call it? Like Robert Monroe, what he does, like something projections where you leave your body and
out of body experiences.
Yeah, out of body experiences.
OBEs.
Man, my curiosity is fired up. I just started reading this new book, The Teachings of Don Juan. I don't know if you is that I just got the first chapter. It seems very interesting.
Yeah. There's several books in that series, and Castaneda, I'm quite sure, is long passed over, and there was some controversy about whether he made up these things. I don't think he did.
Yeah.
Because they once you get into them, they're pretty solid. And Don Juan, his mentor, started him out because he was very, very left brain. I mean, it was like a wall between the left and the right brain.
Well, he just starts talking about his first exercise of trying to find his spot on the porch.
Right.
It took him forever because he was using his left brain the entire night.
Right. And I hold a consciousness circle once a month, and it's been for many years now. And I once did that with my group to find their spot in this big living room. And it was a lot of fun and very interesting where people landed. One person actually had to go outside of the room to the kitchen and found the spot on the kitchen table and sat on it.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. The correlation, and it's not a great correlation, but some correlation with the Seth material is what Seth calls coordination points. And there are tiny ones and there are gigantic ones. And black holes may be some of the gigantic ones. But these are passageways from one reality to another. And so the spot that the person finds in a particular space may be his or her particular tiny coordination point, where there's more of a connection to the other world.
So the Seth material has been really inspirational for you. I mean, I can see it in your reading, like it's very powerful for you.
I have what had also been very important. I started reading Seth material almost 40 years ago. The books were still coming out. And I deliberately read as much as I could in many other authors. Because what I don't like is getting on someone's bandwagon or, being part of a cult or something. I just eschew that. I believe that you need to be a critical thinker.
Yeah.
And have many points of view. But over the last 30 years, though I've read far and wide, I've always come back to the Seth material, mainly because it's very, very broad, much broader than any other person, even including Edgar Casey, if you can read him. His language is very
tough.
archaic.
It's very tough.
Okay. But Neil Donald Walsh comes closest to the Seth material, in my view. And some of the concepts are very similar.
Well, that's what I said. I was like, I could read the Seth material because, like you said, it's very broad. It's like, so I love Paul Selig. So Paul Selig is a friend of mine, and he channels from these guides. And sometimes, like, I've started reading his new book, The Alchemist, or Alchemy, excuse me. And it's starting out pretty good. Like, I'm getting it. I can read it and stay with it. But some of his earlier books, it's very hard to follow, especially, but I was also at the very beginning of my journey as well. So, it was hard for me to connect those dots. But the more that I read, the more that I kind of connect them for myself.
Well, there's another phenomenon that most Seth readers discover. And that is, let's say, if you read one of the first books, like Seth Speaks, and you came back to it a year later or even shorter, the book would seem like you hadn't read it. Because Seth created it in such a way that keep the same material, the words, the paragraphs, the pages, yield new insights every time you read them.
Wow.
And again, this is typical of most Seth readers. They also, if they've read a lot, and I've read the Seth books maybe twice or three times in 30 years, you can flip through a book and just close your eyes and put your finger down, and what your finger's on is most likely to be relevant to what's going on with you right now.
That's so crazy.
This is not just my experience.
Yeah.
It's the experience of close friends and other people.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of Seth online things, and you can now go up to Elmira, to the house where the Seth material began. It's in pretty bad shape. It was a Victorian mansion. And I went up there last year around this time for the first time. And that's starting to develop as a mecca. And I was going to, I don't know that I'm going to be able to now, but for various reasons, but I was working with the people who are the caretakers of the house to go up and do a past-life regression in the very room where Jane channeled Seth.
Oh, but you have her table, right?
Yes, I do.
You still have that?
It's in the other room.
So is the flower still on it?
No, I mean, they eventually did die, but I mean to do that again this year. It was what I said in the book is absolutely true. They lasted for 3 weeks, close to 3 weeks.
I can imagine the power behind. She wrote a lot of material on that table.
Right. She wrote her own books.
And those books sold so many copies. And you're writing or you're reading on that book or that table. There's got to be some energy in that.
Yeah,
in that thing.
There's residual energy. And you can pick it up through psychometry, just touching it. In fact, when I got it, I had my consciousness group get around the table and put their hands on it and see what they would pick up. Because residual energy is an absolute. It happens everywhere. And it's often the reason why some houses and even battlefields, like at Gettysburg, have a lot of residual energy.
Yeah.
But the scenes of battles are still able for some people to be able to be perceived.
To feel that, right? Like a lot of psychics or mediums or somebody can see that, or not see it, but feel it, or maybe see it. I don't know. But
right. And in fact, every year for the last 6 years, at the end of September, my consciousness group and I have gone up there at dusk, and we perform a ritual where we invite the ghosts that are still around and self-trapped to see the light and to go into the light. I think we've moved, and people have captured on camera orbs and other phenomena that are still there. So
yeah, that's one thing I would have to work on. That I would be crapping my pants if I saw some, people going towards the light, orbs. And that's the fear. That's the belief, right? Like, to feel that. I mean, it's pretty powerful to be able to go up to Gettysburg, go to the battlefield, and go with your conscious group, and then do a ritual, and then to feel that energy. I mean, it's got to be pretty overwhelming.
Well, what we do before that, I make sure I do another ritual with the whole group about protecting themselves from spirit attachment.
Mm-hmm.
And I give them a little lecture about all of that, because you don't want to mess with this. You want to go with the specific purpose of helping those who are trapped in this time continuum, don't know enough. Many of them died in shock, and they still think they're back 153 years.
That attachment to this area, their bodies, their attachment to this world, the physical world, and so they don't want to believe. I was just reading something today about that. It was like something very similar. Maybe it was a Monroe book, but it was like that attachment is real. Like we forget. It's crazy, but we forget, right? Like, how many past life regressions have you done for yourself?
I haven't done. I've had them done on me about maybe 8 to 10. 8 to 10. Yeah. It's one thing about being a hypnotherapist, unless you have a friend.
Is it hard for you to get hypnotized?
No.
So when
that's also an illusion, and one of the how I put this, Brian Weiss has done a lot for the profession. He's also done some things I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
Like with Hay House, he often has groups, and I was at one of them, of 700 people.
Jeez.
And I, again, think that is unethical, because I never saw anybody walking around in case somebody had a bad trip.
Yeah.
Okay. And a lot of people come into my office having read the first book, Many Lives, Many Masters.
Yeah.
And in that book, he has a client named Catherine. And Catherine, at the time, he knew how to, we call it age regression, back to a time in this lifetime, okay? But he didn't know about past lives. And she spontaneously went into a past life. Problem was, for my clients, is that she went into, there are various names for it, the Esdaile State or the somnambulism. It's a very, very deep state of hypnosis where you remember nothing. And for the most part, it's useless, especially with past life regression, because the real kick is when you know you're back in a past life and you remember it.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to tell her what transpired. She had no knowledge of it. Okay. So people come in having read that book and thinking that when I hypnotize them, they're going to be out.
And you're telling them. Yeah.
And I have to tell them that's not the case at all. You can be in a medium trance, and you can have a very successful past life regression and be even aware with a different part of your consciousness of being in my office.
So you can feel yourself there.
Yes.
But you can also feel yourself in that state or body, I guess. Like in that life,
yes.
Can you feel that? Like you could, like when you did yours, you were in that, you were that person. Yeah.
The first thing in the protocol I use, the first thing I do, there are a lot of ways to get into the past life. Okay. Some people, you get on a cloud and you go back in time and then you stand on the cloud and you're there. I have people open a door. Mm-hmm. And I won't go into because we don't have much time here. I won't go into the details why that's so. But the first thing I have them do when they're in the past life, they're on the ground, so to speak. I ask them to describe themselves in great detail from their feet all the way to the top of their heads. And so they get a sense of being a different person, clothed in a different way. Mm-hmm. And that's very important to get them there and engaged. And usually the first scene is a quiet scene. Only a couple of times I have someone start while they were in combat. Mm-hmm. That was strange.
Oh man, I can only imagine. Do you have another book in you? You're gonna write another book?
I started one doing sessions for all 4 of the alternate selves that Seth talks about: past lives, future lives, parallel lives.
Oh, I cannot wait.
I'll tell you what.
Come on, hurry up, get this book done so I can read it.
All right. What I can do is, if later you send me by email, I might have your email already. I will send you an article I published from the new book on parallel lives. I just published it online. And that explains everything, and it's fascinating. And I'll send you, I did one other chapter on that as well. I'll send both of them to you.
Absolutely. And then when you write the book, when it's done, I'm having you on again, and we're going to talk about that book.
Okay.
Dr. Mancini, this has been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. How can people connect with you?
The best way is through my email address. And is that going to be flashed or? I
can do that if you don't mind. I can put it in the show notes if you want.
Please do that. Okay. That's the best way to get in touch with me, because I answer emails faster than I answer voicemails.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
And you have my website address.
I have all
and the blog site. The blog site. Okay.
I'll put that all in there.
Yep.
Dr. Mancini, before we go, one last question, kind of deep, but not past life regression deep, but what do you want your legacy to be?
I want to have people feel that the work they did with me changed their lives for the better.
Wow.
That's what I want.
This life?
Excuse me?
This life?
In this life. For now. One legacy at a time. I want people to have bettered their lives and expanded their awareness and consciousness after having worked with me. That means awesome. A lot to me. That's my heart.
I know you're doing that. You definitely helped me. So thank you, Dr. Mancini, for joining the show. This has been fantastic.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You can tell I like talking about this stuff. Love it.
I want to say thank you to Dr. Joe for joining the show and hanging out and just crushing this interview. I hope you guys made it this far. It's kind of a long one, but for those that stayed, thank you guys so much. Go to yoursuperiorself.com, leave me a message. Let me know what your thoughts are on this conversation. Follow me on Instagram at tdowns80. I love to see who is listening to me, and just leave me a message. Love hearing from you guys. All right, I hope you guys have an amazing weekend. I'll talk to you guys later.